Hello. Hello. I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you stopping in. So we're going to continue. Chapter 9. Love unto Crypt. Chapter 9. Listen, there are some links in the description, and I appreciate you all for being here. There's some links in the description, some to the Substack. Well, there's a link to the Substack where I kind of, I'm going to begin to attempt to break down some of the things that might be missed in some of these chapters and some implicit and or explicit takeaways, for all types of people, literary minded people, business minded people. Also, once again, I appreciate you all for being here. There's a link to where you can click. It takes you to the Redbubble, and sometimes I take some of the thumbnail art and I put it on T-shirts or have Redbubble put it on a T-shirt. And you can have the thumbnail art placed on a sweatshirt, pin, sticker. Also, there's a link to a book that I created. Um, and it's basically an attempt to, it's called Navigated Amharic. And it's basically an attempt to help those at absolute beginner level with the language, with the, even with the Fidel, to try and get better at pronouncing, recognizing, just identifying words, gaining vocabulary. So the book is good for those that are trying to learn the language. Okay, with that said, chapter 9, the holy day of Tekla Alpha. The holy day of Tekla Alpha. The holy day, the holy day of Tekla Alpha. Hey, hey, hey. All right. Hello. Okay. Chapter 9. Appreciate y'all enduring that. The next day, Bezabeh tried to meet with Alak Kinfu. He, however, had already assigned all his time for those who would rattle off the poetry and for those who would study books and for those who would chant the chanting praise. Besides, it was his turn to compose poetry impromptu on that night, and he could not meet with Bezabeh on that day. So Bezabeh was appointed to meet him on the third day, and at the appointed time, one of the teachers took Bezabeh to where Alak Kinfu was. They climbed the stairs that were made from a wooden ladder. Its time when it was made was forgotten. While climbing, its crackling noises could wake up a person sleeping in the story, even the one sleeping outside. Having finished climbing the ladder, they got to a small alcove door. Then the man who was leading Rezabeh stood behind and pushed him inside. The alcove was carpeted with a goat's goza from edge to edge. On one side, Alak Kinfu was sitting. Alak wore a thick gabi, and he had a white oxtail in his hand. There was a big book opened up in front of him on the bookstand. Bezabeh went in and stood, but Alak Kinfu did not see him. He was poring over the book. He was moving his forehead and was sometimes laughing. Looking at him in that situation, Bezabeh was about to laugh, but he somehow suppressed his laughter. And while he was thinking, the Alak saw him standing in front of him while opening the parchment.
What can I help you with, brother?
he asked. I, I am a newcomer who has come for education. I was told that you made an appointment for me to meet you, and that is why I came now.
Oh, me. I forgot while playing around with this book. Did I make you stand for a long time?
No, not. I didn't stand for a long time.
Good, good. Where did you come from?
My home is Mancusa, but I came now from the Barawak.
How did you go to the Barak?
To study books.
Did you succeed?
Yes, I studied the new scripture, the Hebrew scriptures, and monastic books.
Good, good. Where did you study composing poetry?
In Mashala. From
Nure, the impish?
from Alak Nuri.
Yes, we call him impish Nure.
Why?
Since he gives a higher price for himself and a lower price to others. It was a name given to him while he was in school.
Oh, nowadays he doesn't have this kind of character, said Bezabeh. You saw him after he had been advised by hardship.
What kind of hardship? Formerly, when all the students who had studied from other schools went to him, he would give them a problem by saying that they should start from the very beginning poem of two stanzas. So we, the rest of the teachers, got together and decided that all the students who would graduate from him should start from the very beginning poem of two stanzas. Therefore, no student was found who would go to him, and finally, he was left alone. Do you see? The mud he had prepared to mess the others' names with became mud for himself. Now, however, he understood that it would take him nowhere, and he came back to us, and we forgave him.
Well, from both of your sides, by the computation you made to keep your own dignity, the students were the ones who got hurt in the middle, said Bezabeh, laughing. It is
Customary, or rather, it is a customary thing, my son, when two mighty kings are fighting to keep their own dignity. Who is going to get hurt? Is not it their followers?
yes.
This one is like that too.
Bezabeh grinned and remained silent, and Alak Kinfu remained silent for a while.
What did you want to learn?
I want to be a poetry teacher.
Good, good. Well, to teach books in your own part, you will be given a seat. You to study your poetry diligently. I'm sure it won't take you a long time to compose poetry impromptu,
Said Alak Kinfu. Bezabeh bowed and went out. Afterward, teaching the books and studying his poetry, Bezabeh stayed there. At night, whenever his students returned from the community in the village having gotten their food, they would give him half their akfada's morsel. This did not include the boiled grain and roasted grain, since he sold a straw mat carpet that one student had made him for one amole, and the straw umbrella that the other student had made him for 1.5 amole. He bought linseed for 2.5 mole, and he was eating injera with the complement of ground linseed mixed with water and seasoned with salt. His students were washing his clothes, and they were washing his feet turn by turn as well. Having one hut for himself, he began living a higher life, and within 3 months he was able to compose poetry impromptu. However, as he had thought first as he studied to compose poetry in Pamtu, instead of going to Addis Ababa, he thought to stay for one more year in Lima and to master his poetry. And in the midst of it, the holiday of Tekla Alpha came. Tekla Alpha was a Coptic holiday of Dima, which was celebrated on December 18th. The abundance of people who would come from far and near to see the celebration was very great. On its eve, in the morning, Alak Kinfu had him called and said,
Tonight, the Wazema, and tomorrow, it's Namugar. It is you who is going to compose. So, think about it. There are a lot of teachers who were here before I came. So if you gave me this honor, they might be disappointed. So it is better if you give it to one of them who came in the beginning. Ineta,
said Bezabe.
God bless you, my son. You are a man with humility. All of them, however, came one after the other. They did not come at once. On the same day, therefore, if I gave it to one of them, it would be inevitable that the others would be disappointed.
Said Alak Kinfu, laughing.
There is a medicine that won't disappoint everybody,
said Bezabe.
What? If you do the composing. You found a good medicine. Good medicine. Well, if I do the composing, will you do the leading of the chant? Okay. Inata,
agreed Bezabe. At night, when Alak Kinfu was composing impromptu poetry of the Wathema, Bezabe was leading the chant. Rather than the poetry, the beauty of Bezabe's voice amazed everybody. It was very rare for a clergyman to praise the other clergyman. On that day, however, even the clergyman praised Bezabe. After the service was finished, as usual, the clergymen who came from outside the country and the students that were studying in Dema, who had come from other countries, were led to the different houses in the vicinity. Bezabe and the other 6 clergymen were led to the house of one great officer named Twari Meshesha. The relatives and other guests who were invited to Twari Meshesha's house filled the big adarash from edge to edge. Food and drink were served in great quantities and magnanimously through the night. After the gaber, they were drinking again, and the youngsters began sitting from one side. The clergymen in their own part began a song in praise for the feast. First, the clergymen were leading the song, and Bezabe was among the group that was singing. Later on, when he began leading the song, the noise in the adarash became gradually silent. Even the youngsters who were singing stopped singing, and all of them began listening. His voice, as well as his rhyme, how God gifted him, said Mrs. Troynet, who was the housewife. After Bezabe finished one part of the verse, and when the others were singing, all those who filled the adrash were clapping.
the Telia is as sweet as wine.
Refill it again and again. Madame Trionet, God bless. Your hand again and again, for the Telia you brewed, with honey you sweetened. May no pain touch your hand, this Telia and Tej it brewed. All of you who have drunk this Telia and Tej say, Trionet is magnificent. While Mrs. Trionet was sitting to the left of her husband, her happiness was written on her face. Her face, which was filled with beauty, was red. Petruari Mshesha saw his wife's situation and called his usher and told him,
Tell the clergyman to take a rest and drink in order that they won't get tired.
By then, Mrs. Trionet almost said, since he praised me with the music, you got jealous. But she was afraid that others would hear her and call her mad. So she bit her tongue and somehow managed to control her furious anger for the first time. Managed to control her anger for the time being. By then, Miss Trionet almost said, since he praised me with the music, you got jealous. But she was afraid that others would call her mad. So she bit her tongue and somehow managed to control her furious anger for the time being. While the clergymen were soothing their throats with tej, which were dried up because of the chanting, the youngsters began singing. Then Thrari Shesha's she servants, who would utter the heroic act and who would utter the war boasts, uttered and sang their lord's heroic acts that he had done and had not done, and they made known their loyalty that they had until their grave. Getting hopes of awards, they sat down. Afterward, the clergyman again began chanting in praise of the founder of the feasts. First, the two students led the song, then Bezabeh started leading. In different places, we were looking for someone to help out.
In Dema, we found Mashesha to be a shelter for those who are out, those who are hungry, thirsty, and in trouble are a lot. The king gave you to them so that they would be in a loft. In different places, we were looking for someone to help out. In Dema, we found Mashesha to be a shelter for those who are out. Those who are hungry, thirsty, and in trouble are a lot. The kind God gave you to them so that they would be in a loft.
Petruari Mashesha was extremely happy, and he stood up and called his treasurer and said,
Oh, please, please, you go and award this handsome student and bring him back.
Right away, Bezabeh wore drufa, trousers, an embroidered tunic, and an embroidered kuta. He came back and kissed the Lord's knee and the Madame's knee and went back to his place. Most of the people who were there blessed him, saying, you deserve it, and may God make you qualified for dress, mantle, and cloak, cape. His friends, however, hated him. Afterward, they were unable to open up their mouths for chanting or even for a drink. After a while, the Lord and the Madame went to their interior room because the time had already passed. So, for those who just tuned in, that's chapter 9. This is chapter 10, Love unto Crypt. Spellwangel. Spellwangel. Chapter 10. Before returning to school, Bezabe was a courtier to Ftwari Mashesha for the holiday week. After the holiday, when he said goodbye and was going back to school, Ftwari said to him,
I didn't talk to you because of the state of confusion. Now we are alone. Where is your home?
My home is Mancuso, my lord, Bezabe replied.
Do you plan to stay here for a long while?
I'm thinking to stay for a year, but God is the one to fulfill my plan.
While you are here, our house is yours. Do not stay away from us, Phil. No embarrassment.
Ftwari Mashesha said as he pulled down his long beard with his left hand, bowing and thanking him for the present and the entertainment. Bezabe went to school. Ever since that time, Bezabe had become a family friend for Ftwari Mashesha and Miss Twaryanet and the entire family. Bezabe was sure to be found at Ftwari Mashesha's house for lunch or dinner. If he did not show up for a day or night, they would worry as if he was their own son. Then they would even send someone to his school to check on him. Ftwari Mashesha was an officer who was proud to be an aristocrat. He would often recite his relationship to the kings of Tigray, Shewa, and Gander. And as far as his repeated talk about his lineage was concerned, he never thought it would be a bore to others. According to what he related, although he could never reign in Tigray, in Shewa, or in Gander, he would feel as if violence was done to him because the place next to those countries was given to others. However, what could be done? It was to be held by victory. When Ftwari became slightly agitated and angry, he would say, I, Mashesha,
the master of heroes, there is no one who is greater than I am by progeny or skill. None even equal to me. Everybody knows about it. Yet, what can be done? The time when one's ancestry and shield chose a man has passed. Look, people like us are living in rural areas with farmers and cattle.
and those who wanted to take advantage of him comforted him, saying, do not worry, Lord. Time will pass, and we will not stay in this way. Ftwari Mashesha's wife, Mrs. Tru, was not lesser than her husband concerning blue blood. Together they had one daughter named Sibewanga. Sibewanga was not tall or short, slim or fat, but her complexion along with her prettiness made her beautiful. Besides her beauty, she had been blessed with character and humility and abundance. Besides her beauty, she had been blessed with character and humility in abundance. Her character, she would also hate arrogance, which made her completely different from her parents. As was the custom of a noble man's children, Splewangel studied Psalms of David, Vadasi, Mariam, Mkke, Mariam, Mkke, Jesus, and Mkke, Georges. In her 14th year, Splewangel also learned home economics and other good skills from her mother. Mrs. Troyanet wanted her to be a complete girl, lacking nothing. Therefore, those who knew her in Dema and in its vicinity, noblemen who had sons, would repeatedly come asking for Sublewangel. Nevertheless, her parents created a protective fence that was like one of thorns around her, protecting her from all the youngsters. By doing so, those eager youngsters who had been called by her beauty, desiring her, were pushed away. Thus, her time to be eaten up had passed, because they were so proud of their ancestry. Tuari Mashesha and his wife, Stoyanet, would refuse anyone who asked for their daughter in marriage if the suitor's ancestry was not as great as they thought.
Oh, you won't believe what I just heard.
Fatwari would say when he would come home. What have you heard today? His wife would ask.
Kinyachmak, so and so, begged me to give Sble Gwangel to his son.
Who is the father of Kinzamak, so and so?
I don't know his father, and neither does he.
Great impudence, Mrs. Troyanet would say.
Gerashmak, so and so, asked me to give my daughter to him.
Who is he the son of?
His father is not human. He is a farmer.
I wish I had died without hearing it.
Vitwari so and so begged me to give my daughter to his son.
Who is he the son of?
His father was a good businessman.
I wish she weren't born rather than have us insulted.
Balambaras, so and so, sent me a middleman asking me to give my daughter to him. Oh, what a time.
Who is his father?
His father was a rude peasant who happened to have many cows. When he died, he gave all his cows as an inheritance to him. Now he drinks all the way by Faga. And when his stomach got inflated, he thought he was equal with other humans. Look now, even he began to ask for our daughter.
We deserve it. Oh, we deserve it for not leaving this country to go where people like us live. We have become something for the peasant to play with, Mrs. Troyanet would say, being in a sad mood.
Oh, you asked, where do people like us live? Today, in the era when the yield of humanity has expired, and only the shaft has remained, where do you really find people like us? What true humanity is there? Wherever you go, a person who had a father might be found. But do you think a person who had a real noble grandparent can be found?
Why is this?
Why? As you know, some of the men are selling their grain. Some of them are selling their cotton. Some of them are selling their butter. And some of them are selling their leather. And then they give a bribe to be called Balambaras, Korachmak, Kayachmak, and Fitwari. Their children would be called the son of Balambras, and so, the son of Garchmak, so, the son of Gijmak, so, and the son of Fitwari, so and so. It's a game. Here in our compound, our servants' children, namely Sitkins and Arerush children, would say, let's play, calling one another Fitwari and Kinchmak. not the Fatwari and Kinsmak that is inherited from bone and blood, but bought by cotton and leather. What an era has come. Look, those are the people's sons who are asking to marry our daughter because of leather and cotton. The fathers of these men have become Gershmak and Kachmak, and some of them have become Fatwari just like us. Grandparents, however, they do not have any. Well, then I will give my daughter to these kinds. Will I give the daughter of Eleni, Canoendueros, Cienos, to the son of a farmer? Though they would not see and hear, would not their bones accuse me? Would not it reproach me?
Fatwari would say, enraged with his blood boiling. Even if you would say you would give, as long as I am alive, my daughter would not marry a man who was not of good parentage. Rather, instead of getting married below her and ruining her ancestry, she will remain unmarried. It would increase her dignity to remain unmarried. Miss Troyanet would reply.
You are right.
Fatwari would agree. Fatwari, Sheshan, Miss Troyanet always discuss things like that, saying to each other,
You are right.
you are right. Many individuals continue to ask her parents for her until she was 16 years of age. In old times, girls used to get married when they were teenagers. After that, she gradually became forgotten. Even if some persons occasionally came and asked her for marriage, as it was customary sometimes, she was counted as an old maid and was asked as if she was a divorced woman, but no one was found who would ask her as an unmarried girl. Hence, their daughter, Sibel Wangel, passed 20 years of age without getting married. Since Sibel Wangel's time for marriage had passed, the innuendos and malicious gossip of the village people would not let her raise her head and see anyone wherever she went. One day, when she was standing in a church while attending the Mass with her mother, she overheard, please, please, look at her for me. The Lord's daughter has become as big as her mother. From Debritu, one of the village women, who would throw out innuendos. Why do you say she has become as big as her mother? Say she has become bigger than her mother has, rather. Don't you see her hips and chest? She looked like a woman who gave birth to 10. Snidu, another woman replied. Her father. What is he going to do to her? Is he is he tying her up and making her fat to slaughter and eat her up? Why does not he give her to somebody? Now, to whom is he going to give her when they find no one to ask for her? To everybody who asks. They used to say, you are not equal with us. And they drove away everybody who asked. Now, they got no one left to ask for her. No, it has been said that Victoria Segie has asked. The Britu said, laughing. Which Asege? That one. The Chena. Victoria Segie. What son does he have? For himself, what son does he have otherwise? For himself. Oh my goodness. Would not she be his granddaughter? Don't be surprised, since he has said he would not marry her as a girl. It has been said that they may disagree. I wish they would disagree. What has this one little girl done? She has become a collector of those old men that have been forgotten by death. What is she going to lack if she stays in her father's house? No one wishes the situation she is living in. It has been said that she has an affliction. However, rather than carrying a dead old man as if she is a grave, she would be better off in the misery she is living in. Oh, please. She is a daughter of the Lord. What affliction does she have? They said that her affliction is extremely high. Amete's daughter, my daughter's friend, namely Tony's friend, told us when she came to our house, each time we would be surprised by the story, and I wouldn't. I would thank God who created me poor. How? How? Look, even among their servants, if the men were not, uh, if the men were seen near the house where the daughter was living, they would get into a big trouble. You see her at church and only in the houses of her relatives. She is not allowed to go to any other place. She is like a prisoner. A guard always surrounds her. If her parents find her walking around outside the fence, they say, "Who called you? Who are you waiting for?" And they humiliate her even in front of others. Well, then, her peers say she won't eat, she won't drink, but she is always crying. Oh, how much can I tell you? I wish that Amate's daughter would meet you one day and tell you. Oh, poorness, so sweet, my sister, the Bratu said, shaking her head as if she was very concerned and putting her left hand over her mouth in order to not have the gossip carped any further. Why did they trouble their only child like this? Snidu asked. To keep their own dignity, so no one would say that his or her daughter married so and so's son. Otherwise, do you think they care for her? Had they cared for her before her flower of beauty fell off, they would have given her away while she was young. Does this mean she will end up paying the price for their dignity? Of course, dignity of slavery. You know what? I fear one thing, Snidu said. What? The thing that happened to Fatwari Flateye might happen to them too. Who is Fatwari Flateye? There happened to be one great nobleman in the Borawak whose name was Fatwari Flateye. When I was married to my first husband, we had been living in the Borawak for 2 years since our house was near their compound. We happened to know what passed in and out of their house and what the city was talking about concerning them, even what they would eat in the morning and in the evening. Any house that has servants, you know how it is, don't you? To the servants, speaking about what their lords do and letting everyone know about their lords makes them courtiers. They feel it as a sign of greatness. Well, then let's come back to the main thing. That Fatwari Falate happened to have one beautiful girl who was old enough for marriage. Like this lord here, they locked her up in the bedroom, saying no one would see her and talk to her. They used to make her cry, and finally she was found to have gotten pregnant by one of their male servants, who they flogged and tied up. Then they secretly sent her to a different place called Mech, where their relatives lived. Where their relatives lived. However, as the proverb goes, rather than doing a bad deed and hiding it, it is easier not to do it. The pregnancy was soon revealed, and the people of the Barak had sung about it for a year. Wow, 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 wow. Whoa, a block, whoa, a block. How much were her father and mother humiliated? I wouldn't blame the girl. She got hungry and she wanted to eat injera with the what? She couldn't find one. She then stole a roasted grain that happened to be nearby. When the Bertu left, Sibelwangel saw the two women and turned around. The Bertu and Snidu began being startled. The Bertu and Snidu, being startled, kept silent for a moment. Has she heard us? The Bertu asked Snidu. I don't know. From the way she looked, I think she might have heard us. Truly, although Spelwanga tried to listen to the service, her ears were insistent on listening to what Snidu and Britu were saying. She didn't miss even one word of what they had been saying. However, the embarrassing thing, when it is repeated, one gets used to it and it ceases to embarrass. When she heard that kind of innuendo, rather than getting embarrassed and harboring a grudge against those who had said it, she would become embittered toward her parents and her luck. On that day, after she returned from church with her mother, they went to eat breakfast in the woman's interior room. Spellwanger didn't have a desire to eat, but her father and mother made her recline at the table with them, and she had to pretend that she was ripping the injera and bringing it to her mouth. After the table was taken away, and after her father went, after her father went to the man's interior room to meet the visitors, Smelwangel went to her own interior room. She changed her clothes and sat on a stool outside her room, warming herself by the sun. She began watching the compound in the pretty spring day of October. On the wide field that Fatwari called Gabi, fence lawn, the grass that would become hay was growing, and there was also a mixture of different kinds of grass, namely sardo, karma, kodai, and other different kinds of grass. The first bore fruit, and the others were blossoming, yellow, blue, and red flowers. From where Spelwangel was sitting, the Gibi was just like a beautiful carpet patterned in dark brown and arid white that was extended from one extreme to the other. The warmer it got, the grass and the fruit bearing plants in the Gebi would bring forth a fragrance and a paradisiacal scent to the air. It smelled like swimming water sprinkled with perfume, and no one would want to get out of such a beautiful pool. A cluster of bees made a thick circle, and in agreement they would transfer from one flower to the other while singing. The decorated butterflies that came out only in spring were dancing in their group around the fruit bearing plants and on the flowered carpet that was carpeting the field. The spring was made of the warp and weft of greenness, fragrance, beauty, and charisma. The spring would make no one feel the frost of the winter or the heat wave of the summer. Understanding that it would pass in a short time, they looked like they were rushing while saying, Let's decorate it before it passes away. Let's be happy on it before it passes away. Let's use it before it passes away. Oh, you lawn. If only you would live and blossom and stay beautiful like this, your beauty. If only it wouldn't be dried up by the sun of the summer, and would it be bedraggled by the mud of the winter. If only your beauty would not pass and your flowers would not fall down. After a little while, those who had been called by your fragrance and charisma, and the butterflies that are dancing and the bees that are singing won't be here. They will look for another blossomed and beautiful place. Sabewangal said as she watched the gebi, which was stretched out around her and made beautiful by flowers and fruits and the creatures that were enjoying it. Right away, she thought of the similarity between human life and the shoots, which were changing along with time. Shoots, flowers, fruit, then drying up and getting mowed. Then the plant that had no fruit would remain only chaff and dust. Only the one that had fruit would live forever and ever by its seed. The human life, too, in its stratum of life, is like this: childhood, youth, adulthood, aging, and then death. He who has no seed, however, just as the grass and shoots that do not bear fruit, turns to dust or mud. Surprising how similar human and plant are, Thibelunga said in her thoughts. Afterward, in plant life, it's flower, and in human life, it's youth, she thought. Plants blossom and bloom in their due season. These butterflies that are dancing around and these bees that are singing. When the plants wither and the flowers pass away, they will leave it and go away. Likewise, when the girl's youth passes away, all those who surround and admire her will leave her alone and go away. In saying this, the world she had had while she had been between her 14th and 16th years of age came to her mind. Then, whenever she was escorted and came outside the fence to see and to be seen, the abundance of youngsters who used to come to see her came to mind. The happiness and pride she had had then, along with the sorrow and embarrassment she faced today, whenever she went out, came to mind. She saw them standing together. Afterward, the comments the Britu and Snidu had made in the church came to her mind, especially the one in which they had said, her father, what he is going to do to her. Is he tying her up and making her fat to slaughter and eat her up? Why does not he give her to somebody? Now to whom is he going to give her when they find out, or when they find no one to ask? To everybody who asks, they used to say, you are not equal to us. And they drove away everybody who asked. Now they got no one left to ask. No, it has been said that Victoria Sage has asked. In reflection, she felt what they had said, their veiled insult, and their open laughter standing in front of her. They were taunting her. Right away, suddenly, as She did not expect it. This ridicule and veiled insult burned up her inside, and it started a bushfire. It was suppressed and was accumulated in her, and it choked her heart. It burned her up and inflamed her, melting her entire body. It seemed to her that it was boiling within her, just like a sea of fire. It suffocated her. The boiling was exactly like a strong volcano that conquered its block and erupted. The steam came out of her mouth and nose, and the boiled tears poured out. The tears began to ruin her beautiful face, her nose, lips, eyes, which were wiped by steam, became wrinkled. Her cheeks were washed away from their softness and good complexion. The more the sea of fire burned inside her, the longer it shocked her. Anyone looking at her would think she was trying to free herself, akin to a person who was trying to free himself from the rope he was hanging with, and her mouth was wide open, her eyes were staring, her teeth protruding. In this situation, when she was wrestling with paroxysm, she looked like paroxysm itself. Thus, Spellwangel, whom people called a good epitome of beauty, looked like something terrifying and disgusting, surprising. Well, of course, good complexion and charisma are the shadows of the feeling that follows it. The good thing was that the law of creation was based on alternation of dark and light, agony and rest. Disturbance and silence, sadness and happiness were not alternating. Life would be impossible since bad and good are alternating. And most of the time, the age of the bad thing is short. It is possible to live. Being burned by the forest fire that had started inside her and boiled by the sea of fire that was created inside her body that was melting and being shaken and disturbed by the erupting volcano that was erupting inside her, she could end her life. However, just like the law of creature, the fire burning in her and the boiling that had been choking her began to cool down, and she too gradually became silent. After some minutes, and she started to control her thoughts and to recognize her body, the tears that were flooding from her face and the mucus that was coming down her nose and the dribble that was coming out of her mouth started to dry up. When she brought a mirror from the house and looked at her face, she found it as if it was covered by thick dough, which looked like film, just like a dog that overturned the dough pot and was smeared by dough. Then, fearing her parents would come and see her, she brought water, and after immersing her in Nutella in it, she wiped her face. The swelling of her eyes and her lips could not be wiped for the moment. After that, she became silent. The sea of fire, which had boiled her inside, washed away the embarrassment and feelings of agony in her heart. For the moment, she had absolute peace and absolute silence and absolute rest. Her tears washed her rage, annoyance, and sorrow. For the moment, she was at peace. She stayed silent for a little while, and then she heard one voice just like the voice of the song of a lot of bees, which she had heard earlier, raising her head up when she put her one ear toward the direction that she thought she heard the voice. It disappeared. Then she turned her head and turned her ear back, and it came again. And when she was about to seize it, it disappeared again. With the wave of the air, it was going and coming. Again, the voice came and went over and over again. She kept trying to seize it and keep it with her, but as soon as she turned her ear, she would miss it. Finally, it stopped. She felt extremely happy, as if she chased that tricky voice and held it. Then her face, that was darkened like charcoal, began to grow light like the morning sky. Slowly, the sound became closer and closer and louder and louder. Finally, she knew it was a flute. Gebre's flute. Gebre, having pastured the cattle to graze the grass in the valley, was coming back playing his flute. His stick was in his left armpit, and without even watching where he was stepping, whether he was stepping on a stone or in a ditch or on a thorn or on a prickle, his flute was leading him. As he entered the fence, he went toward the kitchen. Sitting on the log outside, he kept playing. The more she heard Gebre's flute afar, the more her mouth's bitterness became sweet, and generally her feeling changed from sadness to happiness. Her face, that was ruined by the flood of her tears, became gradually cleared with beauty, and her good complexion returned. Her heart, that burned up and wounded a moment ago, began to be calm. Her heart, that was burned up and wounded a moment ago, began to be calm. She forgot the rain, accompanied by high wind that had maltreated her a while ago. She forgot the rain, accompanied by high wind that had maltreated her a moment ago. She forgot the rain, accompanied by high wind that had maltreated her a little while ago. For a short time, she began living in the peaceful world that was created by Gebre's flute. It would be nice, like I could just have like somebody just like playing a flute right there, right? Just for my own state of mind. Her face, that was ruined by the flood of her tears, became gradually cleared with beauty, and her good complexion returned. Her heart, that was burned up and wounded a moment ago, began to be calm. She forgot the rain, accompanied by high wind that had maltreated her a little while ago. For a short time, she began living in the peaceful world that was created by Gebre's flute. Being different from all other flutes, Gebre's flute seemed like it was given power from the Creator to control and order a person's heart and to make a confession. When Gebre blessed and let out his breath through the seven holes of that three jointed bamboo, it seemed that the flute was given a power from God so as to make the world free from tremendous toil and agony and hunger and thirst and pain and weakness. Instead, in its place, happiness, love, and memory would appear. Gebre's flute seemed like it was given a power to give strength to the weak ones, courage to the cowardly ones, comfort to the sad ones, and medicine to the sick ones. And moreover, to free humans' hearts from vengeance, wickedness, and malice. It would make humans the friends of angels. If only the world that Gebre's flute created for a short time would stay forever. Gebre continued to play the same chant. Belwangel heard it from afar while swimming in a sea of happiness. Amete's daughter, Haptish, came out of the kitchen, sitting on the stone in front of him. She began talking. Her voice was heard, but Sebelewangel could not know what she was saying because the kitchen was far away from where Sebelewangel was sitting, as if he was not hearing what she was saying. Without changing the tune, he kept on playing, then interrupting and smacking the log on which he was sitting on the left side. He too started talking. They had an exchanged they had an exchange that seemed to be an argument. Sit beside me, and I won't. Sebelwangel guessed what the argument was. Tishimer sat on his left side. When she leaned her head upon his shoulder, as a baby upon whom a heavy sleep fell, Gebre changed the chant of the play from hum to song and began playing the popular song of the season. Being short like this, if the night bothered us, you and me and you, let's get buried together without being deceased, in order that we would be living forever, sleeping. Both of them began moving together back and forth as they were sitting. Later, Gabre interrupted his play and said something to Haptis. She raised her head from his shoulder, being careful not to hurt him. She smacked his back and, standing, she began talking. When Gebre put his foot down and stood up to seize her, she ran and he followed her. Afterward, just like a bushed girl being hunted, she was jumping while running through the grass. He followed her. Her running laughter was ringing like a bell in the church. He was getting closer to her, and when he thought he caught her, she slipped from his hand. When they got to one fruit-bearing tree, which hung its branches loosely and widely, either she became entangled by the tied-up grass or purposely fell down. He too followed her, fell down. They didn't get up. From above the tree and from below the grass covered them up. While Haptish and Gabriel were laughing and running, Spelunga was laughing. Later, when they fell down and yet didn't get up, she kept looking to the place where they fell down, like all the butterflies and the bees, saying, "You have our glory touched. There is no one to get mad at you and punish you." Spelwangel said, since the freedom of the servants made her think of her dignity of slavery, her laughter gradually changed to sadness, and she became melancholic. Yeah, so for those who just tuned in, that was the end of chapter 10. Love unto Crypt. Chapter 11. And there's some links in the description if you want to check them out. Substack, a link to a book, perhaps a link to an Amazon. For the most part, just check out the description. There it is. Check out what's in the description. Yeah. Chapter 11. The failed marriage of Twaria Sege and Spelwangel. Like how it lets you know, or it appears to let us know that Spelwangel and Twaria Sege get married and it doesn't succeed. I like how it just doesn't hide it. Like, check this out. When the proposed marriage between Victoria Sege and Spelwangil failed right off the rip. When the proposed marriage between Victoria Sege and Spelwangil failed, all the relatives except her parents and the family's father, confessor, namely priest Wagasi, were happy. Her parents felt sad because the marriage that they had been looking for a time, had failed. Abamo Gasi felt sad because of Spelwangil's parents' sadness. But Traria Sege was governing the entire Bachena, and his father had also been a Trari just like him, and his grandparents, as well as great grandparents, had been Kinjachamas, Kinyachamachis, and Trari Mashesha's thinking. He had had not only parents but also grandparents, as well as great grandparents and beyond, and had his lordly title that was not bought by leather and butter, but inherited from bone and blood. And for Tuari Mashiach's thinking, his bone as well as his blood was a real blue blood. Asege was truly blue blood. This was exactly the marriage Fatari and his wife had wished for their daughter. Fatari knew that the marriage would have been blessed from the tomb of their deceased fathers and mothers and the kings. This kind of marriage was the one that he would not get criticized for and accused by the bone of his father, his mother, the kings who had passed away. However, nothing could be done. It had failed. Fatwari Asege was younger. He had married two girls that he in turn divorced. After that, he remarried the woman that he had divorced as a divorced woman. And, and now, when he passed 50 years of age, his plans to marry a girl again would make him something to laugh at for the entire country. Besides, since his would be friends and would be relatives told him that there was gossip in the country that he was going to rip off the people by having the wedding after Spelwangil's parents had been begged and had agreed. And after the agreement had been done, Tuari Sege said that he wouldn't marry Spelwangil as a girl but as a divorced woman. Tuari Mashesha saw it as a great humiliation that he was not getting the respect and honor a father would get when he married off his daughter. His daughter would not get him at least half of his daughter would not get him at least half of the money that he had been spending for everybody who had married off his own son or daughter in Dema. Mediators were unable to change the minds of the people involved, nor did they find a mutual cause, and the agreement was broken.
The thing that made me angry
Fatwar Mashesa said to his wife and friends who were gathered in the house drinking tej.
is after he begged us by the mediators and made us agree. He then said he did not want it. I am not angry because I thought that my daughter missed a husband or we missed the chance to marry her off to our kind. Thanks to God, we are not the kind of people to go looking for others of our heritage. Our heritage is something to be looked for, is not it? Did I make a mistake?
Mashesha laughed a false laugh. His false laughter and his angry face made him look as if he was strangled.
Would not a person born from greatness respect a great person's honor? Our daughter has the blood of many kings passing through her. Our realm was taken from us and sold to farmers and merchants for cotton and leather. Does he know how he humiliated us by saying he would not marry our daughter in the custom of a girl? What would our forefathers and foremothers and kings who heard this violence from their tombs say?
Bowing his head slightly, he closed his eyes and moved his head slightly.
The deceased wouldn't see. The deceased wouldn't hear.
All of Fatwari's relatives and the wife's relatives who were gathered there bowed their heads and kept silent for a moment. Only Guru Kasa was looking at him with surprise.
Well, of course.
Priest Mogasi said, thinking that Fatwari might get mad at him. Later, when he saw that he was listening, his heart became courageous and his style of speech got stronger.
And he went on. Well, of course. The thing that Fatwara Sega has done is the thing done by a rude person, not to be done by a gentleman. The entire country has talked about it and now despises and abhors the cheap and wretched work of the rude one. To get disturbed by and feel sorry about it is to give value to this kind of rudeness. After he got into our house by many mediators and then insulted and humiliated us, he should not go without offering compensation to your honor. You need to make him know who we are by forcing and giving him hardship.
Please shut up, Fatwari said. As usual, he was despising and disrespecting his father's confessor's thought.
Since you do not know about the matter, don't ramble on. What would a Sergei compensate me? Mashesha, since he said he wouldn't marry my daughter. The honor of my daughter, my honor, the honor of my forefathers. And the kings cannot be compensated by money. Why? Just like the poor ones would not I beg in this name of Saint Mariam to eat. Besides, you told me it was not necessary to get worried and sad. Even if I got sad, do you think I got sad because Asega didn't marry my daughter? You said all this because you don't know the limit of the man.
He was angry and snorted just like a horse that was in its throes. His blood vessel above his nose instantly rose on his forehead, left and right. By then, Abba Mogasi would have liked for the earth to open up and swallow him.
Perhaps you do not hear what good Abba Mogasi said for Tori. It seemed to me it wasn't bad,
said Balambras. Deco, the uncle of Miss Troyanet. Balambras was about to speak when he was interrupted. Yes, what Abba Mogasi says is sell the honor of your daughter and the honor of your forefathers and the kings of for money. And you say he didn't speak badly, Fatwari said with anger. Well then, if you merely get mad, let's all of us go to our homes silently. We do not need to talk. Balambaras said, interrupting Fatwari in his turn. Well, speak. Well, speak, Fatwari said. He was slightly controlling his anger. All of us here are elders. We are not children. Well then, if we get angry about it like a child and drop the thing we started to talk about, what is the use? Balambaras said. I said speak. Stop criticizing me and speak. Fatwari replied, sucking his cheek, because the saliva in his mouth was not enough to swallow Zenga down. Zenga that was greatly caused by the revealed remorse that he felt was actually due to the failed marriage between Fatwari Sege and his daughter. My father, Priest Mogasi, said that since Fatwari Sege did hurt our dignity and dared us. Let him offer compensation. Let him beg our forgiveness. But why should we accept the compensation? Being offered compensation is one thing, and accepting the offered compensation is another. The a person whose dignity has been touched and who is dead or insulted must be offered compensation and begged for forgiveness. Otherwise, his insult and the impudence that was brought upon him will always be something to insult and to dare him, and they will be clothes for him, and the insult will always live with him. Therefore, compensation and begging forgiveness are things to be done to maintain dignity, but they are not the price of dignity. As for this one, you all know better than that. As he said this, Ferrari's forehead relaxed slightly. A great officer like you, Balambaras said, and then continued. A great person like you, a descendant of the great. Daring you in this kind of situation had never happened before, and would not happen either. However, after having dared to remain without begging forgiveness and without offering compensation is something not to be done, and something not even to be thought about. As if Troy Mashesha didn't believe that he was great and a great person's descendant, and as if he would repeatedly say it as a Lord's Prayer, he at once forgot his annoyance like a hypocrite person would. And his heart became captivated and his eyes filled with tears. I did not miss out on all these, but it seemed to me that it is rude to go to the judge and tell the judge to compensate me because he wouldn't marry my daughter, Petrari said, bowing his head. Well then, is it better to remain dead and insulted, having entered into a great house like yours through mediators, having begged a great person's daughter like yours, and having made an agreement, and then to say I don't want to marry her without an adequate reason is an insult? Barambaras replied. It was an insult, yes, it is an insult. He humiliated us. He insulted us. Since he has turned his face against the daughter of Zarraiko, Labna, Dengel, and Fasil, and since we have become farmers, and since he has become a governor, he has insulted us and attacked us, Petrari said with a sad voice. Well then, the remedy for this is not to sit here and feel sorry for ourselves, as he humiliated us. We must humiliate him and make him lower his head and ask your forgiveness. And you, too, must look down to say that you forgive him, and you must be offered compensation. By not accepting the compensation, but by forgiving it, you show that you are great by forgiving. To show that you are a great person's heritage is the remedy for this. Balambara said. As for this, I say okay. Let Kenyajamak Akalu speak on my behalf to choose a relative juror or to the other thing as well. Let Kenjamak Akalu speak on my behalf. Frari said. Kenjamak Akalu was Fatrari's close relative as well as his representative in legal affairs.
Enough is done.
Balambara said, since he not only defeated Fatrai Mashesha but also made him forget his anger, and since that day was his happiness was seen clearly on his face. I am glad the matter has been done, but without sharing with us the two of you have finished it. Commander Desta, one of Fatwari Mashesha's relatives, said, laughing. Why didn't you speak? Who held your mouth shut? Fatwari replied. By the way, Commander Desta said, still laughing. Well, the matter has been finished. We wouldn't turn our back to it. However, please let me ask you one thing, Balambras. When did you get out of your fiendish idea? Become a deacon, then a priest, and a bishop, and then become good enough to convince the priest. Please, what do you mean? Balambras. The tech waxed. All the gathered persons, guessing that what Commander Desta was about to say was something laughable, looked at him with an open mouth, ready to laugh. For this marriage, the main preacher priest was Fatwari. You were the one not to believe in this marriage. You were the main opposer and fiend. Now, when the marriage that you were opposing was cancelled, you made Fatwari the main preacher, accused Fatwari Asege to get him to ask forgiveness and offer compensation. Therefore, when did you go from believing to not believing and then get the main preacher to believe? I don't understand it, Commander said. Your example was not for this. It wouldn't go with it. It would be good for you to use it for another time, but you simply wasted it vainly. Balamarasan said, laughing. All those gathered laughed, too. The marriage, I oppose it still. If we broke it and compensation was to be paid by us, I would choose to pay. However, having forgotten the matter of the marriage, the matter of dignity is what we are talking about now. Since Fatwari Sege has touched our dignity, since he has dared us, since he has insulted us, he should not go on without putting his head underneath our knees and being humiliated as he humiliated us. Let's make him say, forgive me. This is the matter, not the marriage. His daring and his insult. I hate it more. This is why I am saying that. Let us make him offer compensation and ask forgiveness, not because I ever liked the marriage. Please, wait for me, said Commander Desta. Please, wait for me. Let me ask you one thing. You said that since he dared us and insulted us, he should beg forgiveness. Is it because he begged for our daughter and made us agree, and then he said he wouldn't marry? That is right. Good. Well, as you said, when we tell him to put his head underneath our knee and get humiliated and ask for forgiveness, if he says that rather than doing this, he would rather marry our daughter, the marriage that you hated, does it mean that you bring it by threatening him with compensation? If he would marry the way we wanted to, then what else would we need? Fatwari Mashesha interrupted. No, it's not like that. Excuse me, Fatwari, Balambara said with a smile, lowering his head slightly to Fatwari Mashesha, showing the sign of asking forgiveness for denying him. I know that he would say that he would marry our daughter rather than ask forgiveness and offer compensation. How do you know? These ears being small, hear from afar, Balambara-san said, holding down his 2 ears and laughing. What is it that you have heard? Stop your boasting and tell us what you have heard. As Fatwari Sege wanted, Unless we give our daughter to him as a divorced woman, he decided to offer compensation and ask forgiveness in order to break the agreement. I heard this from a trusted person. His wish to break the agreement unless we gave him our daughter as divorced woman without going looking for the trusted person who had told you. The messengers have already told us, but they did not tell us you would be begging forgiveness and would offer compensation, as you said. If he said that he would offer compensation and beg forgiveness, why didn't the messengers tell us? As I said, I knew this is what Victoria Sega decided, but I didn't say that I knew why the messengers didn't tell us. In the meantime, the messenger not raising the matter of forgiveness and compensation is of benefit to us, but it is not harmful to us. Look at him while he is digging a hole through it so he could flee, Commander said. Commander counted this as a win, and he became happy because he saw Balambaras Meteku trying to change his way. Don't think I am fleeing. I am not fleeing. I'm not going to flee. I know that the decision that has been made is what I just said. I do not know the reason why the messengers told one part and not the other. Let me explain why I said that. They are not telling us the part of compensation and begging forgiveness is beneficial to us, though they were not, though they are sent to tell. Do not think, don't think I am fleeing. I am not going to flee. I know that the decision that has been made is what I just said. I don't know the reason why the messengers told one part and not the other. Let me explain why I said that. They're not telling us the part of compensation and begging forgiveness is beneficial to us, though they were sent to tell. When you get caught again, not to leave this one and go to another fleeing place, let us make an agreement and then speak, Commander said, laughing. Let's put aside the joke for another time, Commander. Now, let's finish the serious matter that we have started. Had the messengers told us that Fatwari Sege sent them to tell us that he decided to offer compensation and beg forgiveness, even though he couldn't completely be free from being called the one who had done the wrong without being forced. His saying that he would offer compensation and beg forgiveness would have been a witness for him that he was son of a gentleman, but not the rude man, and he would have been thanked for it, and we would miss the chance to say of us, oh, they did not remain being dared. They forced compensation, made beg forgiveness. But right now, the thing that Tuarius Ege had first decided to do, but he didn't do because of his messenger's fault, it would seem as we made him do by grabbing his nose forcefully. Therefore, the matter has ended in a good way. Well, of course, there is no doubt that it is better for us to be said that we forced and got compensated. Kinyashmak did not finish what he wanted to say because he was interrupted. That's what I mean. Barambaras interrupted. Since he saw that Kinjamak, Akalu, and the others were in agreement with him, he laughed with his entire face. Do you understand now what I am saying, Commander? Breaking up the marriage agreement that we hated. We get offered compensation and begged forgiveness, and besides, it wouldn't, or rather, it would be seen that we did it by force, and it was not offered willingly. That is what I want, but I do not want to renew the agreement of the marriage. The opinion that I have about the marriage is if we had broken up the agreement of the marriage, I would have sold all my cattle to pay the compensation. By the way, why did you hate Fatwari Sege like this? Fatwari asked. I don't like his being a husband for Sebel and his being a son in law, however. I do not hate him in all other ways. Besides the fact that he is the son of a good breeding, he owns approximately 40 hectares of land. Why is he hated? Fatwari asked, brooding. By the way, his and Sebel's marriage is there anyone who accepted their marriage happily besides you and through? Would a person be found in this country that didn't judge against you and even against us, the relatives? Its failure is good, anyway, Kanjamak Kalu said, snatching the answer off from Balambra's mouth. Why, please, Fatwari said. How much will I count for you? First of all, as far as the age is concerned, he is not Thebel's peer. Well, of course, this is what the country said was bizarre. And second, Kinjamak Kalu tried to enumerate why the marriage of Fatwari Sega was not liked, but Fatwari Mashesha turned his face toward the others, since the age difference between him and Thru was great. When the matter of age was raised, fearing it would lead to the difference between his age and his wife's age, he wanted to flee. Please, the difference of age isn't that serious. Mrs. Troyanet interrupted without seeing her husband. Between my lord and me, there is 27 years of age difference. Nevertheless, it did not prepare. Nevertheless, it did not prevent us from producing a child and living together all this time with happiness. Yes, the difference of 27 years, Patari said, his goat horns, blood vessels, erected left and right on his forehead. And just like the horse in its throes, he snorted. Since his wife touched the sore that he feared, he felt pain and got enraged. First, know your own age, saying I know someone's age, rather than rushing to drag out a thing that one doesn't know. You should know your own age. Don't think only by this, but in all other things too. She just likes to drag out things. She is doing it as her job. She said 27 years, but I don't know if there is a difference of even 25 years between us. Fatwari said, as if Kinjamakalu and the others didn't know his age was greater than hers was. Then he turned his eyes away from his wife and looked to the others as if they were the ones who said that his age was greater. Looking at them, he was trying to cover his rage with a small, false smile. One of the known Fatwari's signs of anger was not to see the face of the person who made him angry. Okay, 25. Let it be even 24. I said the difference of age is not a serious thing, said the wife. Yes, first, know your own age, Fatwari repeated, as if his wife's not knowing her own age would decrease the difference from his own age. Mrs. Troyanet being attracted by the warmth of the chat and her tongue having slipped, touched her husband's sore spot. She felt sorry, and by soft word and by soft face, she tried to mitigate her husband's coarse heart and his rage. However, since Fatwari's face didn't turn toward her, she was unable to calm him. For a short time, they all bowed their heads silently like mourners and kept sitting silently. And Commander Lester grabbed his tall barrel of teja and took a swig until it was half empty. Everybody looked as if he had done a thing that had never been done before. Right away, as if the tej he drank explained what he would say, Commander said, smiling. "Oh, okay. Can Jamak tell us the reason why you hated Victoria Sege being son-in-law? You have told us the one reason, now tell us the other." His goal was to get rid of the discontent that had been hovering over the relatives because of the age difference being raised. However, Abba Mogasi, without understanding Commander's thought and forgetting the thing that had made them all shut up, once again went back to the age issue. Abba Mogasi was the kind of person who would never upset a man purposely or harbor a grudge. He would respect others and fear fighting people. However, he was hasty and knew little tact. Like others with this kind of character, his good work did not get the price it deserved, and he was not loved and respected, but was seen as a burden wherever he went. As to the reason Kenjamak mentioned that Ftwaria Sege's becoming son-in-law was hated was because of the age, he began. When he said this, they all stared at him. Ftwari raised his head up as if he was looking for a hole to get out. His eyes were going here and there, and he stared at the roof. Only Guru Kasa was laughing silently. For the reason you said, his becoming son-in-law is disliked. At any time when a man is advanced in his age and being a man of wisdom, he would be a concern to his house and to his married life. Therefore, the age being advanced is good, not bad. However, what could be done? It failed, Abba said, without even bothering to know why the others were staring at him, thinking that he would get the answer. He waited for a moment, but all of them bowed their heads and remained silent. Afterward, either because Guru Kasa felt sorry for Abba Mogasi or because his issue was good for an answer, he said, laughing, "Being advanced in age and being a man of wisdom is one thing, and being advanced in age and yet unable to control the drooling spittle is another thing." All who were there except Patrari laughed. Now is Victoria Sege the kind of person to be called like this? In the name of St. Mariam, Abba Magasi said without understanding that it was unnecessary to remember the words that Victoria Mashesha had chosen and spoken to make his wife sad. Only when all those who gathered there looked at him with anger did he think that he spoke unnecessary things, and he got startled, and his forehead perspired. Balambaras, the Teku, thought Ababa Mogasi rambled on because the rest of them were all being silent. So he said, "One of Fatara Sege's main diseases is that he was trying to marry every beautiful woman he saw. He wants to marry a wife, but doesn't want to keep her. To a woman he saw being dressed up, her eyelashes made up with antimony, he would say, 'Let me marry you.' And when he got married, he then would divorce. Today, the title, 'Let me marry you,' Asege, has been given to him. Did not you hear this, Lord?" Alambra said. looking at Fatwari. I didn't hear it, said Fatwari, just like a baby who was in a sulky mood without opening up his mouth enough. Thus, let me tell you, if you say Fatwaria Sege Mvachena, you will find no one who knows that it is him. His name has become. Let me marry you, Asege. Of course, the number of wives that he has married and divorced, God might know them, but I don't think any other person knows, even himself, Balambara said, laughing. Besides this, in his wide realm, starting from his one house and going from east to west, north to south, in a 4 or 5 hour journey, he has one house and one concubine. All these concubines need servants, board, clothes, and salt for the month. Therefore, his main house, in which the so called wives live, has never been equivalent to his dignity and his title. In his house, whenever he came in, having all who escorted him, he would ask for food and beverages. However, where would his wives and his house servants bring it from that they hadn't received from him in the first place? It is bizarre. By the way, if one wants to say something indecent, there is nothing that wouldn't be indecent. Having built the house in different places seen as indecent, and having a concubine in each and every house is no more the custom of noblemen, and rather is seen as indecent. What is the thing in which is not indecent? Fatwari said, having kept silent since he got mad at his wife, and since there was the bitter taste that his wife's words left in his mouth. Speaking was not yet sweet for him. No, Lord, building a house in each and every place, and having a concubine in each house. I did not say it is not the custom of the nobleman. I know that each and every nobleman is doing it. However, no matter what, if he doesn't do it according to his married life and ability, his dignity and his reputation are doomed. That is what I mean. This is what happened to him. Besides, saying, when Balambaras was about to continue, please, even for he who doesn't have a reputation and doesn't have dignity, ruining another person's reputation and dignity is not new. It is a customary thing. When Fatrari said this, his wife burst into laughter. Right away, when he abruptly turned around, his old face instantly became smooth and feelings changed, and he forgave her since he saw from her eyes that Stroyanet's heart was worrying, repeatedly asking for mercy since earlier times. Since earlier, until Miss Troyanet burst into laughter, her husband had been turning his waist around and turning his face around so that he wouldn't see her. Her laughter was to get his attention, not because what he spoke was laughable. Now she won her husband's thoughts as well as his heart. She took his attention and became happy. Fatwari's feelings changed too. On his own part, when his anger had passed away, he regretted his getting mad at a very minor thing, and that he caused his guests to grimace after having called them to his house. He felt it was the thing that a great person like him, who was the son of a great person like him, shouldn't have done. Therefore, he not only began looking for the way he could be a complete partaker of the chat, but also to pass that, to be the leader of the chat. Nevertheless, on that day, since his thoughts were tuned to his daughter's failed marriage, You could not get out of it, and even the marriage itself, from the beginning to the end, since it had nothing to make one feel happy, eventually would throw him into discontent again. By the way, he said, smiling, I sometimes think that perhaps some phobia might have possessed her. Aristocrats' sons would approach and then they would flee. During that time, the Kolalawai, the Kololawi, son of Daganmach, Elizabeth had begged, and we agreed. And when we began doing the banquet, it failed. Next, the Mecha's son of Tuari, Jimbare, begged, and after we agreed, as you all know, he died by skirmish. Right now, too, my daughter, who is a girl who has been raised with modesty and honor, and who I kept in an interior room, he said he would marry her as a girl, and the agreement is again broken. Simply, she must be entrenched by some kind of phobia and a possessing spirit. How was it that the daughters of the farmers didn't miss out, but my daughter, the child of many noblemen and kings, would miss out? Do you know the proverbial saying, ear is far away from his owner? Fatwari? Gurukasa said, slightly laughing. What? Fatwari said. It means a person is going to hear about himself and those around him, namely about his family, after those who are far away heard of him and finished talking about him. Well, then, let it not seem false to you. It is true, he said, turning his eyes and glaring at all those who were sitting. How so? What do you mean? Fatwari said. Sibelwangel has been possessed by a serious thing so that she would not marry a husband. All the country has talked about it and finished talking about it, and it has been forgotten. Right now, you're bringing it as a new question, expounds the proverbial saying, ear is far away from his owner and his family. To be true, Guru Kasa said and howled with laughter. And then, are you laughing? Mrs. Threanet said to her sister's son. For many years I have been sad and crying, and I have cried myself out, Guru Kasa replied. For Trimasheshas, being startled, was unable to think and to speak. He remained as if he was dead. All the others too became alarmed. Afterward, when the mist that had been covering his brain began going away slightly, he said with a broken voice, it is about a thing to possess, which has possessed my daughter, that the country has talked about and finished talking about. Yes, about the serious thing to possess which has possessed her, said Guru Kasa. I wish I was dead. I wish I died. I wish I died. Where are we? Where we have been thinking that we are living in the midst of relatives and friends, but we are living in the midst of strangers and beasts, Miss Trianet said. Yes, you are not going to die, however, if you are dead. If both of you are going to die, well, that will be the thing that you said. Where are we living? Is a good question. You, both of you, where are you living? Let me tell you where you're living, Guru Kasa said, still laughing. Both of you, Fatwari and you, are living a weird life in a world that passed 1,000 years ago. Having said this, it came to his mind that weird was the name that was given to him. So he smiled, and those who were sitting were laughing. He turned his eyes around. Never mind for the weird. There is no one who would tell him of his being weird by expressing it directly, but rather indirectly. You are the kind of person who wouldn't listen even if told directly. Here you go. Well, then, this is the thing. No one understood what Guru Kasa had said. Well, let it be. What kind of thing to possess has possessed my daughter? Is it Satan or. Oh, oh, Troy asked, his eyes filled with tears. Miss Troyanet was crying. Yes, it is Satan. Rather, it is not a delicate. It is not a delicate and hidden Satan. It is an incarnate, huge devil. The devil having large horns and a beard, along with his escorts, is the one who possessed my sister. This devil, along with his escorts that possessed her, is the one who made her pass the age of youth that God has given her to enjoy and spend with love and happiness. The devil has made her spend it with sadness and melancholy. That is him who made my sister whom devil. That is him who made my sister whom God created better than others and to overtake others, to be behind the left behind ones, and made her to live in the curtain of embarrassment. The more Guru Kasa spoke, the more his laughter changed into bitterness and annoyance. When Guru Kasa first said that Sibyl had become possessed by the devil so as not to marry a husband, all the gathered ones there, thinking it was true, were startled. Each and every word that was coming out of his mouth startled Mashesha and his wife more than it did the others. Mashesha and Miss Toyanet were trembling. Shall I show you where the huge devil that has long horns and beard along with his escorts are? Guru Kasa asked. Eh? Said Fatrari. And in truth, since it seemed to him that the devil, along with his escorts that had possessed his daughter, had come there, leaning on his bed, he rose up from where he was seated, standing up as if he wanted to choke the devil's throat in vengeance. That is him, said Guru Kasa, pointing his finger toward Fatrari. Said Belwangel did not marry a husband because the horned devil that possessed her is over there. His escorts, the devils who have become his apostles through his bad lessons and who have been preaching, are over there too, he said, pointing to his aunt and to Abba Mogase. Fatrari, without taking his eyes off Gurukasa, went back to his bed for support. To him, all the things going on seemed to be dreams and nightmares, not reality. Spellwangel did not marry a husband because of an envious father, mother, and father confessor, being a possessing Satan, devil, hindrance, and phobia. You are the ones who made her an old maid. When he said this, he felt the load that had burdened him, and that was heavier than the wall, daubed with mud, lifted off of him. Said Fatrari, like bellows that had been filled with air and all of a sudden blew out. Well, shut up. It is enough for you, thinking that you were breaking bad news to us that we hadn't heard. You were worried and cried, but if it was our belief and opinion that you likened us with demons or phobia. No one asked you about it. Strayanet said to her elder sister's son, my sister, through. You forget one thing. You forget that I am Guru Kasa. I am not weird and mad. There is no one who would ask a madman to give judgment, and there is no one who would prevent a madman from giving judgment either. Do not hear when I am speaking. When I speak, close up your ears as if it is your habit. But speaking is my right of being, weird and mad. Therefore, just like a madman, I will speak. Do not interrupt me. If you speak when I do, do not forget that he who speaks with a weird man is weird, and he who speaks with a madman is mad. Guru Kasa went on. As I said before, being father and mother, yet spiteful, you, her parents, are who made her an old maid. Among the sons of the aristocrats who didn't come repeatedly and walk on his knees to ask to marry Elongel, however, you made her an old maid. By the way, if he who is not mad like me, but who is serious, should ask you, by what is it that your bone and blood is different from others? Your blood, would not it stop when you die? Would not it be terminated? Would not it be halted? Would not your flesh be decomposed? Would not it rot? Would not it become full of maggots? Would not it stink? Would not it get rivers? Would not it be broken up and become dust? And you're thinking a strong, smart person who has wrestled with poorness and knocking it down, and who would make it captive by his sweat and effort and by his blood, has no value. As if he has just come out of the dirt, he would be called fatherless. And you're thinking the kind of smart one like this is to be despised and abhorred. Should this kind of hero, namely the one I just mentioned, beg your daughter to marry, you will count it like a big degradation and death. In your opinion, a man who is to be given value and who deserves the act of begging and to be given a girl for marriage is a lazy one. He is the one who wouldn't climb up and down and who wouldn't feel hot or cold, but who has been sitting and waiting for his parents' death and vowed for their death, and then who would inherit their wealth when they die. In case he didn't get it, he would cry and criticize God. This is the one who has value, in your opinion. Unless you got this kind of lazy person, this kind of beggar who would beg for his father's and mother's deaths, and who would be living on somebody's wealth. You said you wouldn't give your daughter, and you made her an old maid. Even now, Spewangel's luck will be better if first you regret and change your vain thoughts, or if you get together and die. Having said this with warmth and emotion, Gurukasa finished his trenchant criticism. Some of the people kept silent without paying attention, as was the usual case. Others, feeling sorry for him, were pressing their lips. But Trari, in his own part, thought the reproach and insult that his wife's older sister's son had brought down on him was more than enough to bring out his anger. And since he thought it was not the real devil who possessed his daughter, he too began laughing.
It is amazing that I was shocked when he said that when He said that she was possessed by a devil, thinking that it was true. I became almost dead. By the way, you call true and me weird. What would you be called? The weird as well as the horned devil you are.
Fartuari said, and laughed from his heart. All except Stroyanet began laughing, rather than merely belittling his thought and laughing at it and passing it. If the insult and the reproach had hurt and tickled them, Gurukasa would have been happy even if they beat him up. However, as usual, what he spoke was not sweet for them, and simply they laughed at him. And feeling sorry for him, they remained silent. Gurukasa got angry for the moment and went out. So that concludes chapter 11. And I appreciate all y'all tuning in. For those that tuned in, super cool. I like all y'all to check out the links in the description. Read the description. Check out the description. Read the description. I might leave some comments too. So if I leave a comment, read the comment as well. And feel free to leave a comment as well. But read the description, okay? I appreciate you all for tuning in. All right. Take care. Yes.